Hi everyone, it's Amanda from Willow and Pip. Today I am back in the soap studio and I'm going to be making one of my very popular soap blends. This soap is called Cabin Roast. I am also sharing a full step-by-step tutorial today on how to make this soap for yourself. And if you check out the description and notes, I will have the full recipe for you, my viewers, for free. So just like baking a recipe, I have a recipe card pack or the equivalent thereof of all of the recipes that I make running my soap and candle business here. Um, and the system is just basic, but it keeps me organized. So every single recipe I have has its own page here attached to my clipboard, and I keep the clipboard handy right in my soap studio. So for today's recipe, I have just pulled the Cabin Roast soap recipe. And again, I will link this in the show notes so you don't have to worry about missing this. You can also just pause here if you want to copy down. But I have my soap recipes broken out into percentages, but loaf quantities. And these are measurements in grams for the most part, unless I have stipulated otherwise. And again, don't worry, I'll type this clean for you because there's a little bit of handwriting here that probably only makes sense to me because it's me who wrote it. But I essentially put this setup together here in Excel, and I have 3-pound loaf molds that I use. You'll see later in the video. And all I've done is simply multiply it accordingly. So I can make up to 6 loaf molds. And all I've done is taken that first loaf mold measurement and times it by 6 or times it by 2 if I'm going to make 2 loaf molds. So I thought you might want to see that just as how I lay it out. Also, when you make soap, there's kind of stages. And so for me, this is just how my brain works. I know like a typical recipe, you might have, text written at the bottom, but I have made so many bars of soap that this makes sense to me. So when you start making soap, you are going to measure your water and your sodium, and you're going to mix those, your sodium hydroxide or your lye. You're going to mix those together. In a separate container, we're going to have our coconut oil, our shea butter, and then we're going to add in our liquid oils. And so for my soap, I use castor oil, olive oil, and grapeseed oil. I always add a kaolin clay. I apologize that doesn't have the N, but again, just my eyes only, now yours. But kaolin clay helps the soap retain its essential oils as you add them. And here are my essential oil breakdowns for the cabin roast. So we are going to add some cedarwood essential oils, some fir needle, and patchouli, just a little bit of patchouli. And again, all of these are in grams. And then we're going to add, when we get into adding the natural colorant, I call it kind of that category, but in this case, I'm just adding some coffee grounds. So I'm actually going to be adding 1 tablespoon of coffee ground for a 1 pound, for a 1 loaf mold. And then I add my goat's milk. I use goat's milk powder in all of the soaps I use. It really makes a creamy lather and a really nice finished product. So for people that maybe have eczema, dry skin, sensitive skin, I love adding the goat's milk, but this is optional. You don't have to do this at all. Maybe you're not wanting to make goat's milk. Maybe you want to add coconut milk powder. Again, not essential. So you could totally omit this product if you, or this ingredient if you didn't want to add goat's milk. I would add 1 tablespoon of goat's milk for a 1 pound loaf. So I hope that makes sense. Now let's get into making our soap. As a little aid when I am working through my recipes, I usually will add some kind of paper or sticky note here. I'm today going to be making 3 loaves at a time. And so this paper helps me visually line up my ingredients so that I don't actually mistakenly pick a different weight for the ingredients. So first thing that we're going to do here is I'm actually today, because I'm a little bit time pressed, I'm going to be using the heat transfer method to make the soap. What that means is I'm going to mix the water and the lye or the sodium hydroxide, and that's going to heat up quite a bit. But I'm going to use that heat to pour it over my hard oils, my coconut oil and my shea butter, which is going to help melt these oils. So what I actually like to do when I do the heat transfer method is I like to get my oils measured out in advance. it just helps me mentally think of less steps, knowing that some are already complete. So let's go ahead and get our coconut oil at 742.5 grams and our shea butter at 675 grams, put in a container, weighed out on our scale, and ready to go. I buy my coconut oil in bulk, and it's an interesting ingredient because it's quite hard during some times of the year, but during the summer months, if your house is humid, it can become quite soft. But because today is quite a cool day towards the end of August, we're quite hard again. So I kind of just have these spoons in here. I just keep these because I use so much of this on a daily basis. So I just scoop these out, and I will put it into my container here, measuring out with the weight. So I really love this kitchen scale because it has a hard plug in. There's a cord at the back. You can add batteries to this scale. It wasn't very expensive, but I did pay maybe $5 or $10 more for this one to have that plug-in option. In soap making, you do not want to be running out of batteries because some of the ingredients and the way you add them is time sensitive. So this is a really, really good scale. I actually have two of them. I have one at the station, one at my candle making station. I like them so much. So if you're looking for a scale, I would recommend these ones. Anyway, to set these scales up, or any scale really, so we're going to turn it on. I have the container on the scale, and what that's going to do is set the weight to 0, which I want. I don't want it to be measuring the weight of the container on top of it, so that when I add, you can just see a slight touch of my finger. If I'm going to add something to that, that's the true measurement I want. Now, I don't know if you can see, but the measurement scale unit is in ounces. I want it to be in grams. So I'm just going to hit this mode button, and filter through pounds, grams. That's what I want. So now it's at 0 grams. It's ready for me to add my ingredients to this. So I need 742 grams, 742.5 grams of this coconut oil. So that's quite a bit. So I just kind of scoop, spatula, plop in. It's actually not as hard as I thought it was. It's a little bit softer, which is nice. So I'm at 271 grams there. If you have everything ready to go, staged, when you finally get to blending it all together, it really comes quite easily. So there I've got a little bit too much. That's 762. So I'm just going to scoop some out here and work to fine tune. Okay, that's 743. I'm going to call it at that. Now with soap making, you do want to be precise, but I am okay with 0.5 of a gram because that is very, very small. So 743 grams in our container. All right, next up is our shea butter. I usually buy my shea butter from Candour Soap. I am from Ontario, Canada. Candour Soap is not too far from me, and I buy them in these 3-gram bags. You can get them in larger, but I like the size of these bags for handling, as well as it fits in my storage shelves underneath of this counter. So for shea butter, we need 675 grams. I'm going to grab a clean spoon for that. Shea butter is harder than coconut oil. And they both just go in the same pot together. I only have a little bit left in this bag, so I know I'm going to still be well underweight when I just dump it like this. So I have little remnants, little bits in this bag. I will save these for this bag of little baby chunks for some lip butter I make, where I only require like 5 grams of shea butter at a time, a very small amount. So I won't let that go to waste, which is rather sustainable of me. Now in soap making, it's messy. I'm not the cleanest. I try to stay organized, but I'm just going to put my spoon on a paper towel there so it doesn't get greasy. So I'm up to 485 pounds. They're 485 grams. And I need 675. And I have my recipe right here on the counter. I constantly check, double check, because I have made errors before and then wasted money and ingredients and waste, which I hate to do. So I try to just keep checking. And when in doubt, check again. And you can see how my method of having that piece of paper lining up the grid lines, that's way too big, really helps so I don't make an error. So that's 695, a little bit high. I'm just going to scoop through here to get some smaller chunks so I don't have to cut it as much. And I've been doing this so long that I can kind of visualize what size of chunks per the gram weight I need to take off. But just play around with it until you get the weight that you need. Okay, so our 2 hard butters are just sitting in our bucket, and I'm going to go ahead and set that bucket aside. I'm going to measure out our liquid oils now. And back to our recipe card here. So our liquid oils are in this section. So what we've got for oil is castor oil. I'm going to be measuring out 169.5 grams of castor oil. Olive oil is our big one. I'm measuring out 1,519.5 grams. And then grapeseed oil is 270 grams. You can substitute grapeseed oil for any other light oil, like an almond oil, or trying to think of what other, an avocado oil or an apricot kernel oil would work well there too. But whatever you pick, if you are selling, keep it consistent, because when you make your ingredient labels per Canadian label laws, you have to tell what's in it, and you don't want to be changing it for every bar of soap that you make. So I picked grapeseed oil, works well. Okay, let's start with our castor oil. I get this one from Kendora Soap as well. You can buy it anywhere, but often I will try to take advantage of an order and order from the same spot. So if I'm ordering something else from Kendora Soap, I'll order castor oil too if I need it. So we need 169.5 grams. Now, I've got 173 in there, so I'm just going to use a pipette, take a little bit out. I'm not overly worried. I have had to sort of compensate with the other oils slightly if I've been over, meaning I'll just take a little bit off the other weight of one of the other ones. But in general, try to get it as close as possible. You certainly don't want to be like 10 grams over a weight. And again, as you scale up your recipes, you get just a little bit more forgiveness because the statistical population or the baseline dilutes it more. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. So next up, we are doing our olive oil. I buy my olive oil from Costco. And I live in a small town. I get it delivered for free because I order enough of it. So this is 1,519. This is a lot of olive oil. I've heard soap makers talk about the price of olive oil. It has gone up. And I wouldn't let that deter you. Just cost out your soap accordingly. I wouldn't start substituting ingredients for quality. So if you're happy with your soap recipe, I guess my message is stay with it and just charge what you need to charge. Okay, 1519, right on the nose with that one. That's awesome. And then lastly, grapeseed oil. So I'm just pushing the tare button in between each. That zeroes it out again, resets the weight. Grapeseed oil, we need 270 grams. Again, this is our light oil. Meaning it's lighter in viscosity or thickness. $270 grams. Excellent. And to this, I always add my clay. You could add your clay to your essential oils. Doesn't really matter. Sometimes I do that too, but I'm going to add the clay to the liquid oil base. And for that, I need 3 teaspoons. I thought it was tablespoons, but it's teaspoons. I buy my Kaolin Clay from Kindora Soap. But again, you can get it from wherever you like to buy your soap supplies from. I find Kindora Soap's quality really high. But I do also like Windy Point. And I do my essential oils from New Directions Aromatics. So I need 3 tablespoons of goat milk powder. I also buy this from Kindora Soap in pretty large quantities because I make so much with it. And 3 tablespoons of this. This you don't have to scrape it. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. I just do a scoop. Kind of level it off with my thumb, but it doesn't have to be leveled off, you know, flat with a knife or anything that exact. Okay, now the fun part, adding the essential oils because they smell so good. And I do choose to use pure essential oils. Again, I buy them all from New Directions Aromatics. The quality is very, very high, very consistent. Their delivery is great. But you can get them wherever you want. So cedar wood, I need 135 grams. Fir needle, I need 36 grams. And patchouli, I use dark patchouli. There's light and dark. I use dark. It's a little stronger or a little more patchouli, more darker base smelling. It's hard to describe, but it's lovely. All right. So just give that a little mix. It smells so, so, so nice. Again, my favorite part. And I'm going to set that aside as well. I have brought up my 3 soap molds sitting here on my island. And so I have my essential oils, my liquid oil, and my hard oil here, just all sitting aside. I'm trying to prep for when I add the lye, because that's the part, and the lye water solution, that's the part that becomes the most tricky for me. But you can do this in a little bit of a different order. But today, because I'm using the heat transfer method where I want the hot lye water to melt this, I like to stage it and have everything ready to go. I have put my liquid container, my liquid oil container back on the scale because as I was triple, quadruple checking my recipe, I realized I forgot to add the ground coffee, which is the base of this entire soap. So I've taken out my coffee. I use the Maxwell House, just big, large container of ground coffee. But that doesn't matter. The brand doesn't matter. Pick what you want. And I need 3 tablespoons of this. And right into the liquid it goes. And again, it just smells so nice in here. The ground coffee with this essential oil blend is one of my favorites. It's really authentic. And I would say it's masculine leaning, but again, like I love it. It's just very grounding. Okay, now I should be okay to set this aside. I lied once again. At this stage, you could, I'm going to quickly stick blend this liquid. You could also do a little hand mixer, but I just want to test out my stick blender because I'm going to need it for the next stage. So I'm just going to give this a little zap here, a little mix. And really all I'm trying to do is just get the Kaolin Clay goat's milk powder and some of those coffee grounds mixed in a little bit, especially for the clay and the powder, the goat's milk powder. I don't want any clumps. So the stick blender is really nice. I've recently upgraded my stick blender and I really like this one because you can push just with the pressure of my finger. I'm making it go slower and faster. It gives you a lot of control. And it's just a very smooth stick blender. I like my upgrade. Okay, I'm happy with that. So I always keep this like higher container here for my stick blender. It's just what has worked for me and I can kind of just place it like that for the next stage. You always want to measure out your lye and water in 2 separate containers. So here I have my lye or sodium hydroxide, and guess what? Also from Candor soap. It's a bit of a theme here. They're not sponsored, I just like them. And sodium hydroxide or lye, I need 453 grams. For this stage, I just realized I made a big boo-boo. Make sure you have your safety glasses on. You don't want lye in your eye. So my bad, don't do what I just did. Put your safety glasses on. Okay, error corrected, got my glasses on. I'm putting my lye to the side. I'm gonna measure my water out in this pitcher, tearing my scale so it's at 0. And I need 679.5 grams of water. You want to buy distilled water. You don't want to use chlorinated water or your well water, anything like that, because it could have contaminants in it or minerals, etc., that could react to your soap. So it's just one of those things in soap making. You do want to buy distilled water, but it's very cheap. Again, $6.79. A little bit over. The nice thing is it's just water, so I'm just going to pour a bit back in. Try again. This is the fun. I always find the water the trickiest, actually. I don't know why that is. It comes out too quickly, maybe, or it's more dense. $6.79. So again, 679.5, but I'm okay with 679. I will take it. Okay, so when it comes mixing the two ingredients together, again, this is the more hazardous part of soap making. I've rolled my sleeves down. I have my safety glasses on, and I'm going to put a face mask on. You'll notice when I pour the two together, you may or may not actually, I'm not sure if the camera will be able to pick it up, but there's like a fume that will come off of it. So you'll notice me standing away at the same time here. And I'm going to add the lye granulars to the water, not the other way around. And you're going to want to mix slightly here. Again, the reaction is going to create quite the heat source. This is hot. I can feel it on my hand already. It's warm. Be warm to the touch on the side. You might be able to start to see that chemical reaction coming off the top here. When your lye water is clear, it means the lye granulars have been mixed in with the water thoroughly, and you will be ready to start adding this lye water over top of your hard oils. Just start melting those oils down with the heat transfer method. So you can see it's still milky. This is going to take a minute or two for this liquid to become clear. While we're waiting a couple minutes here, I just want to show you with my heat gun. So we're at, around 218 degrees here. So it's quite hot. So very challenging to do the video talk with the mask. I hope you can still hear me okay. Our lye water is getting pretty close to ready to be added here. I'm just stirring it a little bit more just to make sure everything is fully dissolved. So there's other methods to doing this. Sometimes I will make my lye water in advance and put it in a mason jar and leave it for a few days, and then I will heat my oils up. So there's a few methods depending on how much time you have, how much you're making. But this one works quite nicely if you're in a hurry. Okay, so I can tell that the lye water is completely incorporated, and I'm just going to pour this lightly over my oils here. The key to this, it's still quite hot. You're going to see the oil starting to melt here rather quickly, and you want to just keep mixing it gently, which will help melt everything down. So this is just what it looks like here when you first put the lye water in. Again, this is called the heat transfer method. So I'm using the heat of that lye water to melt down these harder oils and butters. And when I first tried this, I was so nervous because I had always learned the method of heating up my oils on a stove to a certain temperature, usually between 90 and 110 degrees, waiting to balancing out the lye water, cooling down to that, and then mixing everything at the same temperature. And sometimes I still do that. Makes beautiful soap. However, I find this makes just as beautiful soap. I literally am making the same ingredient, and I have noticed zero difference in quality. So again, I was nervous to move to this method, but honestly, once I did, I find this method simpler and more time consuming. You just, for me anyway, I shouldn't say for you, but for me, it's all about being methodical, staging everything, and really triple checking I've got everything ready to go. That doesn't just include the ingredients, that includes setting up the loaves, making sure you have enough of, your spatulas and anything that you might need, your stick blender, just prepping all of that in advance like you would if you were making a batch of cookies. So this will take probably 10 minutes or so. You do want to just continue to stir like I am. You don't want these, but this is the shea butter. It's the harder of the two butters that were in here. You don't want that shea butter to scorch. I've never had that happen, but so I have heard from other soap makers That's the concern. So you just kind of keep mixing it around, using that warmth of that chemical reaction with the lye and the water to keep melting. So we've pretty near have all of the chunks in this batter melted. And I'm always okay with just like a small little chunk or two left over, because as we continue through mixing, I'm going to use a stick blender and it's going to help, you know, mix up that chunk so it's not, or any of those little residual chunks, so it's not the end of the world here. So the next two steps are going to move pretty quick. I'm going to add the liquid oils into here and do a quick stick blend. And then I'm going to add the essential oils as the last mix. And then we're going to put them in our soap molds. So it's getting exciting. I'm not as good at this part as I probably should be, but I try to get everything out. I love watching other soap makers. Some people got the containers so clean, and I don't know what it is, but I love watching that part on other videos. But I always feel like I do it a bit of a disservice. Okay. Let's give this a little stick blend. You don't want to overblend in soap making. You just want it to get incorporated. Because I'm doing the heat transfer method, it will set up quicker, but don't let that scare you. I've never had a problem with it, but you do notice a difference if you do the two methods. I'm just going from like bottom to top, pulling it up just to make sure it's all mixed. And I'm going to get our essential oil blend here. Add that in. I have to say, filming and making is challenging. But so far, so good. Let's grab a clean spatula. Let's get our essential oils in. So good. It's hard to keep it clean, I find, at this stage. Sometimes I just mix like without blending, just to incorporate a bit, and then stick blend if I need it to be thicker. The last thing you want is to over stick blend and not have your ingredients incorporated and then be worried because it's getting too thick too quickly. But this is actually behaving really, really well. And that's a beautiful part about this recipe, is sometimes different essential oils will make your soap batter get thick too quick. So you can see in real life time here how the blend I chose mixes really well. Like, this is still a very, very nice liquid batch. So it's not getting away on me is the point. You don't want soap on a stick. You don't want your soap to become so thick that you can't pour it and it's going to be awful. Or worst case scenario, completely ruined. So you want it to be like a pudding mixture, pudding consistency, which we're almost there. And I'm going to just move over here to pouring into our molds. So I still have my glasses on because this obviously could splash up, which you don't want, but you certainly don't want in your eyes. And this soap is just so, the consistency is perfect. I'm so happy. It's been a little bit actually since I've made soap, which you could probably tell from today's video. Haha. Look at that. That is exactly the consistency you want. I'm going to be able to do beautiful tops. Excellent. Really happy with that. Nice full soap loads. I have everything measured out here to perfection. as you can see, this is exactly what I want. Get you a nice close look here. So it's just kind of a bit thicker now than a pudding consistency. And I'm going to leave the camera view right there and show you how I do my tops. So 2 tools I use for my tops. In this case, I don't always have to use this, but as some of it's over the edges, I'll just kind of scoop it back in a little bit. And it just makes demolding cleaner when the soap hardens. I don't have like a ledge I have to kind of clip off, which is something I have learned over time. And then I use a spoon and I just do a scallop down both sides. This is absolutely perfect. Sometimes at this stage you have to wait a little bit for it to thicken up, but to me this is beautiful. I'm more than happy with this viscosity, I think you call it, thickness. It's just like a perfect level of being able to get a bit of a texture, a bit of a peak. I like a little bit of a peak. This is the part where your creative side can really come out. Do whatever you want here on top. Make it a signature top. Make it something that so when the soap hardens and the customers look at it, they know it's you. And then I always just do a little bit of a dollop in the middle. I don't know why, I just do. You could totally leave it at the last stage I just did it if you like more of a peaked soap. Excellent. And I spray my tops of my soap with some rubbing alcohol. This container just has rubbing alcohol in it. It's a little sprayer. And that just removes any soda ash. So when your soap dries, it can have like a white film, which we call soda ash. It's not harmful at all. It just doesn't look pretty. We made it. I really hope today's video helped you as a soap maker or a hobbyist. I hope it was beginner friendly enough that you could follow along. Yet for other advanced soap makers, maybe just adding another ingredient or method or style to the way that you've learned how to do soap making, whether it be the heat transfer method or just how I go about adding the ingredients in what order. That's it. If you got any value out of this, I would love it if you could subscribe or like. That really helps me as a small business. Thank you.